Mm. What's up, guys? DRJ here, and today I want to talk to you guys about the death of aggressive gameplay. So I have talked about doing something like this for a while, and I alluded to doing it in a few of my videos. I think I wrote an article out on my website, and I put it off because it means a lot to me, and I think that it's of paramount importance in the FPS world. To me, there's no single greater issue going on in FPS gaming right now than, what I would refer to as, the lack of aggressive gameplay, the lack of the ability to play aggressively in FPS games. So anyway, like I said, now I'm doing it today. Hopefully I'm able to articulate myself. You guys are able to understand where I'm coming from. I want to be able to, explain, my past, my present, my history, and give you guys, examples of what it is I'm talking about, so you can hopefully get a better idea of what it is I'm trying to say, and hopefully convince you that this is a good thing and not necessarily something that we can afford to live without in FPS gaming. So that said, this is going to be a two-part sequence. The first part I'm going to talk to you guys about, what it is, why is this important, what does it mean, what factors affect it. And then the second part, I want to more focus on Modern Warfare 3, exactly what it is that Modern Warfare 3 does that I feel like detracts from aggressive gameplay. And also, I will give my ideas on what I think I would change in Modern Warfare 3 to more, to bring about more of an aggressive style once again. So first of all, aggressive gameplay, just to give it a broad definition, I think in general it's somebody who prefers the term, the best defense is a good offense. It's somebody who, instead of waiting to react, is constantly initiating combat. It's not to say that you can't still do things like let your teammates go in and, figure out what's behind those bushes, but it's somebody who, it's due to a variety of different factors that I'll elaborate on in a few moments. It's somebody who, doesn't bother to do that because maybe their skills, such as their strafing, their precision, their map knowledge, are to such a level that it doesn't matter, about those other factors, such as, using teammates as cannon fodder or something like that. You're going to jump in there, you're going to take charge, you're going to lead the way in, you're going to take that point, etc., and let everybody else come in and, behind you when the dust is settled, like, you're still going to be there, you're going to be taking all the majority of those points, and everyone else, gets to sort of compete for your table scraps, I guess. So aggressive gameplay, I think to me the factors that tend to take away from this are, it's complicated because it's no one specific variable, but if I had to list off, several variables that to me make the most impact on it, it would be, radar number one. So radar takes away, it's a skill equalizer, right? It takes away that map knowledge ability that, players who keep their heads up and don't have that tunnel vision and are aware of what's going on around them have a much greater ability to, read the map and know where players are at. But when you have radar, that doesn't count for shit. Second one would be the insane, basically, weapon damage. When you have very high weapon damage, it's another massive skill equalizer. It's one of the reasons why when you play on games like COD on PC, the most popular way to play by far, 95% of all the servers are playing hardcore of some kind, and the hardcore damage is like ×2 or ×3. And there are a variety of different guns that tend to be 1 to 2 shots and you're dead. And as it is, like, guns are like 3 to 5 shots. It's crazy, right? Like, back in the day when you go play, GoldenEye 007 with people, one of the rounds that people like to play a lot was License to Kill. The reason why I want to like play License to Kill was because it was one-shot kills, and anybody can be good when it's License to Kill. The same sort of philosophy concept holds true in COD. When you have guns that are insanely powerful, you lose out on that ability to initiate combat, and there's less of an emphasis on things like strafing and aiming. And combine that with the map knowledge, so now they have the radar on you. Well, like I said, that's a huge skill equalizer. The third thing would be level design. So it was interesting because Modern Warfare 3 specifically talked about taking out the huge amount of kill zones during the game. Obviously they did not. We'll focus on that later. That's not the issue here. But when you have all these different kill zones, and when you have, essentially any given point on the map has a 360-degree killing field where you can't it's very difficult to maneuver your way around the map and know where the enemy is going to be at, given the way you're maneuvering. If you can't do that, then, it's so frustrating because it feels like, well, what's the point of trying to maneuver my way through any given point on the map if I can be shot at any given time? Also, when you're playing a mode like Domination and all the points have multiple different, like, sniping vantage towers to kill you, well, it doesn't exactly encourage people to want to run out there and grab those points, because what it shows you is that it's a very good way to die. The last points, I talk about, kill streaks. Everyone's going to talk about kill streaks. Well, doesn't that discourage, aggressive gameplay? Yes. Encouraging people to get a lot of kills without dying is, the antithesis, I guess, to what I'm talking about. But at the same time, I feel like if you had all those other factors, if you can mitigate the other factors I just talked about, radar, map design, and gun damage, I feel like those would almost be besides the point. People would still be doing extremely well regardless, and it wouldn't really matter what your kill streaks were like. I think an even more important factor that is starting to rear its head in Modern Warfare 3, especially on PC with fewer amount of players, is the lag. The lag is a massive, massive equalizer. When you're initiating combat and shooting somebody in the face and they're coming back and killing you, what can you really do about that? What can you take away from that circumstance? What have you learned? The answer is nothing. You can't do anything differently. When you feel like the only way to take somebody down is to, just gangbang surprise them from the back, and when you feel as though that's the only way to reliably kill somebody, then something's really not working. Dedicated servers really are of paramount importance to FPS gaming, because FPS gaming is so unique in that it demands more out of all the different variables that are possible out there to make a game competitive than any other game. In order to make an even playing field for everybody, there needs to be more variables that are, you need to have all your ducks in a row, more so than any other area of gaming out there. To give an analogy, like what other area of gaming would it be acceptable, to initiate combat and shoot somebody in the face first and then have them come back and kill you and write that off as just part of the game? Like, what if pro StarCraft players, like, would they accept that? Like, if they initiated combat and a surprise attack ambushed this guy's base, but oh, too bad, because there was lag, the other guy was able to beat your ass and you didn't really know it, but he had actually attacked you first and therefore you died. Would those guys accept that? Like, fuck no. Like, that stuff's not even acceptable in like competitive Tetris. Why is it acceptable in FPS gaming? And anyway, it shouldn't be, and that's the whole point. Is I want to educate you guys and make this dialogue and hopefully talk to developers and convince people to change things for the better. So why is this important? This is important. The sole reason why this is important is the gold standard in FPS gaming, and that is consistency. This is why this is so important to me. Modern Warfare 3 is more or less synonymous, well, Modern Warfare, COD, whatever, is synonymous with random. The reason why it's random is because there's so many different elements that skill equalize, and the game is so brilliant at essentially enabling anyone to be king for a day. Anybody can do well, and unfortunately what that also means is that doing well doesn't mean shit. If anybody can be #1 player for the day, what does that mean? If anyone can be #1, doesn't mean jack shit. Well, unfortunately, that's the way FPS gaming has gone, and what happens is when you go down that route, you throw away consistency. So whether or not the first Modern Warfare games it was a conscious decision to do this, that's how they are now, and I think that they realized that, and that has been reinforced throughout the series. But consistency is the single biggest reason why I want to see aggressive gameplay put back in FPS games, because that's when you stop punishing aggressive style of gameplay, you enable players to basically rise above the rest, and as a result of that, you get the players that are doing well can do well more consistently, more oftentimes. So, like I said, the good players always tend to do well or better than, even in Modern Warfare, to a greater or lesser extent. But, it's not like it used to be, and I think that's part of why games have gone the way that it did, is because the good players in games past weren't just better or a lot better than other players. Like, you were in another galaxy compared to somebody else. Like, there just simply was nothing they could do. If they didn't have the good aiming and the good strafing and the map knowledge, there were just too many skills, I think it felt like, for them to feel like they could do anything, and they felt frustrated, and as a result of continuing to play, they would just give up and leave. And that's what Modern Warfare has capitalized on so well, is bringing in that general sort of casual player and giving them the ability to have a round when they go 20, 30, 40, and 0, and even when it's going to happen one time, well, even if it doesn't, you can just instant respawn in and go to town again. Like I said, real quick, when I talk about, if I want to compare myself, like I said, to other players in like say Battlefield or earlier games like Quake. Like I said, those scores, like I said, on a consistent basis, it's not like you had to have a good game. If you were a good player and you loaded up those games, I just cannot emphasize this enough, you were going to destroy lobbies, you were going to run people out of there. The biggest challenge when playing those games, especially when it got into like Battlefield and I was a little bit older and was able to compete on a higher level, the biggest challenge in Battlefield was not how high you could get your score. The biggest challenge in Battlefield was not destroying servers to such an extent that nobody wanted to play anymore. It was bad enough to where like basically what we would have to do is you'd run out and cap all the flags and destroy everybody and spawn camp them, and then suicide, kill yourself, switch to their team, and go back and take them all back the other way. Like that was the challenge, is running the round out too quickly, not having fun because everybody died so fast. It's a very, very different world and a dynamic from where we're at today, where it feels like you have to fish for those good games. You have to find good lag or no lag, which is almost impossible, at least on PC. And on top of that, you need to find teammates that aren't basically feeding the other team all their kill streaks as well. But anyway, I feel like that's the consistency is why this is so important. And this is, like I said, this is where COD has moved away from. And as a result of that, like I said, there's no real way to sort out who's good and who's bad. And while there are more aggressive style players in COD, like relatively speaking, like it's like I said, it's like comparing fast times in the Special Olympics, which is terrible. But that's the first analogy that pops in my head. It's just it's COD is a game that, for all those different reasons I listed, encourages that defensive style of play, and I think more importantly, like it's not only encourages defensive style play, but it punishes that aggressive style. Like I said, it's not possible to know that there's a guy around this corner, or to anticipate that and run around that corner and rush him, and rely upon assume that you're going to take a hit or two, but still kill him because your strafing and aiming is better than his. That's not possible anymore because of how powerful the guns are, especially combined with lag and everything else. Chances are he's sitting behind a fucking bouncing Betty or a Claymore either way. It's just not possible to do that kind of stuff anymore. It's not that aggressive style gameplay, it's not that it doesn't encourage it, it's that it punishes it. And I want a game that not only doesn't punish it but encourages it, because I think it's limiting to force everybody to sit in with the same style of play, and that is basically slightly different shades of defensive styles of play. So that's why I think it's so important. Hopefully this is able to come across to you guys exactly why I think this is so crucial. Like I said, the consistency factor there. And then the next segment I'll elaborate on exactly what it is I think the Modern Warfare does in more detail and what it could do differently to change that up. So as usual, any questions, comments, critiques, let me know.